What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Hopefully you had a great weekend. I spent a good chunk of the weekend from Friday to Sunday playing Mario Odyssey. I really spent a lot of time on it on Friday. I actually ended up completing the game Friday night. And then I spent the rest of the weekend kind of playing some of the post-game stuff because there was a lot of stuff to do even after you have the credits roll. And I am now working on a review for Mario Odyssey, so that should be out hopefully sometime this week. Earlier, the better, I think. So I'll hopefully have it out either Tuesday or Wednesday for you guys. And we have a lot of stuff to talk about today. We still have the Super Nintendo Classic drawing going on as well. Make sure you enter for that down in the description since we will be pulling the first winner at 63,000 subs, which is coming up. So let's get started today, guys. So Paris Games Week from Sony is, well, in a few hours. It starts at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time, and I will be streaming it. But we are expecting some announcements. As they said, there are 7 PlayStation 4 or VR games. We don't know the mixture or how many of what of either one, but there are going to be at least 7 new games announced and shown off to us, 21 games total, so we will get more information on some of the games we have already seen. And now we kind of have a little bit of a hint from a Twitter account for PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, pretty much alluding to them being in Paris right now. So they are where Sony is for their live stream, and there have been a lot of talks about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds not actually being a console exclusive for Microsoft. Microsoft has been trying to work out a deal with them, but I understand the pull from Sony, right? How many PS4s are there out there? You're leaving that many people out of the mix when it comes to something like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which has already taken over Steam, PC, and it will take over the Xbox as well, as we all know at this point. So I do think they want it to be multi-platform because they understand the amount of money on the line with PlayStation 4. They could work out a deal with Microsoft to where there's cross-play, and then, of course, they get extra things. But I do think they are moving it to PlayStation 4, and I'm not sure yet, but we might see it in this stream coming up. I think it'd be pretty cool to see that game on all platforms that it can possibly be on. By the way, come on by. I'll be streaming at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then we'll report and talk about some of the stuff later on, and then it'll probably get into the next Newswave. So if you're mostly tuning for Newswave, well, expect tomorrow's Newswave to have a lot of Sony Paris stuff. Next up, let's talk about the Nintendo Switch in Canada. It's kind of a part of the world a lot of people don't talk about for console sales, right? We always hear like media crates in Japan. We hear MPDs, for example, with the United States. Then we see the UK sales charts and then parts of Europe as well for the sales charts. But we didn't really talk about Canada, and it's a place that Nintendo wanted to get into and really kind of take over. And at this point, at least for 2017, they have. They at this point have outsold the PS4 in Canada, despite the PS4 having roughly 2 months of a head start, right? I mean, the Switch came out March 3rd, so it had roughly the first 2 months, January and February, and then a few days in March or something. But at this point, the Nintendo Switch has outsold the PlayStation 4. Now, we did have some numbers for the Nintendo Switch at 209,000 units sold. The PlayStation 4 is technically right behind it at this time with 205,000 units. Nintendo did say, along with the general manager who did the interview here in Toronto, that according to them, 73% of systems that were sold in September were Nintendo systems. That includes the 3DS, Super Nintendo Classic, and the Nintendo Switch. The PS4, more than likely, along with the Xbox One, made up the other percentages. I don't think the Vita is really moving, if at all, in Canada. I could be wrong. Maybe there's like 0.5% for the Vita. For the most part, though, Nintendo has taken over Canada, and they do, at this point, cite Mario Odyssey with being a massive reason why pre-orders for Mario Odyssey have been through the roof there, and then systems are being bought in anticipation for Mario Odyssey. Of course, I've been seeing, along with others on social media, Twitter accounts, for example, even YouTube, where people are walking to stores, kind of filming the area. You're seeing a lot of Switch units really in play right now, which is good because that means that the supply issues are slowly coming to an end, and I think we're going to see that reflected. Today, we should see Nintendo sales information directly from Nintendo, which is going to tell us how many that they have shipped. And if the supply issues are really slowing and there's not as many, we're going to see bigger numbers than we think. A lot of people are thinking 6 million, 6.5 million, but then we have people on the higher end saying 7, 7.5, even 8 million, and it might be higher than we think with 6 and 6.5 million, as people are saying, if the supply issues really are figured out. It seems plentiful in some places, and then it seems like a drought in others. However, it looks like Canada has been pretty much taken care of when it comes to supply, and Mario Odyssey is certainly pushing systems there. Next up, let's talk about Call of Duty World War II, or WW2, something we haven't talked about in a little while. It is coming up on its release November 3rd, so that's this Friday, and a lot of people are starting to get the game early. Go figure, right? Some people spend a lot of money to get these kind of games early, whether they want to experience the story, or they want to leak it, or they want to just get things going with their skills for multiplayer. I see that a lot. The problem here is apparently Sledgehammer has incorporated a patch that is needed before you could start playing the game, something that they deployed yesterday, it looks like. So it's very recent this patch went out for people to actually play the game, and that has some people concerned and then some people kind of happy. Now, I do see this as a rumor. It's not, I can't confirm it because I don't have the disc yet. Even if I download it with a digital version, I've connected to the internet, so the patch could have been included with it. This is more for people to try out with the disc. When you get it, disconnect to your console from the internet, pop the disc in, and see if it just locks away everything and it requires a patch for you to play anything, because that's what people are saying is happening here. And again, I'm gonna need confirmation from someone either close to me that you trust, because you know how it is the internet. However, there is an overwhelming amount of people, whether it's on their Reddit or on forums or even just in general on websites, saying you need to download a patch or it won't work. It's very similar to the Xbox One, where if you first get it, before you'd have to at least connect to the internet for it to even work. Like, it wouldn't go to its main menu system. So at this point, that's what a lot of people are saying. And this, again, makes some people mad because they're saying, well, if I don't have any access to the internet, which is not as uncommon as you may think. When I, like I said, sold games to people at retail, there were a lot of people who would get really frustrated that they needed the internet to do certain things, whether it was play Destiny. I know. But still, it happened. People would be really frustrated and they'd want to return the game if they need the internet. So this would frustrate those people. Other people on the other side are saying, great, that means that people can't ruin it for me. Because if they get the game early and the patch isn't out yet, they can't play the game, so they can't ruin it for me. And then that way the publishers or developers control when the story is played through. There even been talks about, oh, they should just hand out keys for certain people to unlock the game. And it's hit or miss. It's hard to say if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because there are going to be people on either side of the fence who don't like it and others that do. I don't really like it if that's the case, because I prefer for the game that you buy on the disc to be, well, as DRM free as possible. Like, I would like it to just be a disc that you pop in. I already don't like that you have to install the entire thing to the hard drive. I prefer to just pop it in and play it, but I'm kind of more of the old guard, talking about, you know, popping the disc into the PS2 or the PS1 and just playing right away, or popping a cartridge in. You don't have to rely on a server somewhere to give you information just to play the physical game you bought. I am curious where you fall on this, though, because there are a lot of people who probably would have preferred this with something like Zelda or Mario Odyssey, where there are leaks everywhere. Well, if they can't download the patch to play the game and unlock the game for them, well, they're not leaking anything, are they? Next up, let's talk about limited run games and the Nintendo Switch. Now, if you don't know, limited run games finally is able to create physical media for the Nintendo Switch. And what they like to do is take indie games, for example, that never had a physical release, and they release them physically. Full box art, a lot of times you get a cool manual, and then the game itself. In this case, of course, because it's not an actual disc, it's cartridge based, they probably had to work out all the details because it's not like a Vita cartridge, for example. In this case, though, they finally have the ability to do it, and there is now a rumor going around because, well, something was kind of hinted at by Douglas Bogart, who's one of the co-founders of Limited Run Games, saying this: I can't really give any hints, but I can tell you we thought our first title would just be a pipe dream, but instead it's a hole-in-one. And this is from an interview with the gaming website The Switch Effect, just asking about, hey, what are your plans going forward? Can you give us any information about what your first Nintendo Switch game is going to be? And this alludes pretty much to some kind of golf game. I know what you're probably thinking. Of course, yes, Flog is getting a physical release. No, I'm just kidding. And more than likely, it's Golf Story, which has me extremely excited because I love that game. I think it's such a great game on the Switch. And if you haven't played it, go get it right now. What are you doing? Pause this video, go download it. It's worth it. But having a physical release would be really cool, because a lot of people are probably excited, just like I am, on the possibilities of what they can do with this. Of course, we want to see a full physical box art and everything, but could they do a manual inside? Sometimes they add little stickers. There's a lot of stuff you do. I would just be excited to see the box art, see what it looks like, get that nice Switch cartridge with Golf Story stuck right to it. Oh, it's going to be so cool. I hope that's the case. I hope it's not something like Infinite Mini Golf. I doubt that's the case. More than likely, it is Golf Story. Next up, let's talk about AMD and really their improvement, heavy improvement on the mobile CPU or APU at this point market. Now, they have announced 2 new APUs that will be going into laptops or ultrabooks later on this year, going into the 2018 year, and it looks like they are going to heavily compete with Intel on the CPU side, something that their APUs really haven't done well enough. At least I don't think so, and a lot of people would probably agree with me who do things like edit videos, things like that. The one thing AMD has always done well with their APUs is more on the integrated graphics side, where they would play certain games much better than the iGPUs that exist in like an i5 or an i7, for example. AMD is kind of that on lockdown. However, the two new CPU APU combos that they have announced at this point heavily compete with Intel's CPU performance. And these two is the Ryzen 7 2700U and the Ryzen 5 2500U. Now, they had some goals kind of in mind going into this, and then they shattered them completely. Here's a chart here comparing it to the 7th gen APU, pretty much their last APU. You'll see 200% increase on the CPU performance and then 128% increase on the GPU performance while using 58% power from the last APU. That is absolutely insane. Not only that, they then take it and compare it to a desktop i5, with a significantly higher TDP, a 91 watt TDP compared to a 15 watt TDP of this little chip. And this is going to be very interesting because now they are running with CPU power from a desktop i5 in tiny little ultrabooks that can run on battery and be portable. This is something that I think a lot of people who are, again, video editors would love to have. It's a quad core with 8 threads, so 2 threads per core, and it looks like it's going to have much better gaming performance. So we're going to start seeing laptops come out that can play some decent mid-range games without having to spend a ton of money. That was always the big benefit of APUs. Getting something like that, if you want to play like Minecraft, for example, was great rather than have to buy something that has an NVIDIA GPU and then like an Intel i3 or an i5 or something. That really significantly increased the price. So I love the look of this. I love seeing Ryzen really push Intel, because now Intel is going to have to really come out with something that can then best this. So it's going to be very interesting going forward here. I do like the mobile space though, using less power but giving us better performance at this rate. It is insane. And our last bit of news, let's talk about Microsoft's Game Pass on the Xbox One. Now, if you don't know what this is, it's a service. You pay $10 a month and you get access to really a ton, I mean more than you think, a lot of games on the Xbox's kind of backlog, their old library. And then they've been starting to include some games a little more current as they go forward. And on Xbox Wire, they gave us an idea of some new additions coming, and I was a little surprised to see some of these. So they're including 7 new titles to the Xbox Game Pass. Again, if you have it, you just download these and you play them locally on your machine. These titles are Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, Halo Wars Definitive Edition, Resident Evil HD, Oddworld New and Tasty, The World of Van Helsing, Mega Man 9, and then Skyforce Anniversary. So they are adding more games to this, and honestly, seeing something like Metal Gear Solid 5 go to that service is really cool. PlayStation added it to their PlayStation Plus membership, something, you know, we all pretty much pay for if we want to play online on the PlayStation, and you get that for free. However, to see these games show up is pretty cool. It just adds to their library. Of course, some games will be taken away. As a great example, that Metal Gear Solid 5 that's added to it is going to be then taken away at the end of January. So I guess if you want to play that, yeah, get Games Pass. It's not a bad service. In fact, I think if you put money into it, you're going to find games that you haven't played yet. And I mean, if it's new to you, right? So I like to see these games going to it. I hope we see more current games go to it. Something like Metal Gear Solid 5 is old, but it's still a great game. Games don't become bad if they're old, especially if you haven't played them, so might be worth checking out if any of these games are interesting to you. And guys, that's it for Newswave today. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We do Newswave every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and kind of round up a lot of the big points of news from the video game world from the day before. Gives you a good idea of what happened and what you may have missed. Definitely hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, because it helps us in the search results and get recommended to new people who have never seen this before. Guys, I appreciate you watching. Let me know what you think about the Call of Duty WW2 fiasco, where people have to download a patch just to play the game. And then, of course, let me know what your thoughts are for Paris games with PlayStation. We have a little bit of time from when this video goes up, so hit me with any kind of predictions. Then afterwards, talk about it in the comments below. Thanks, guys. I'll see you later on today on the stream.